To understand why the narcissist cannot recover after betraying a super empath, we first need to understand what the super empath truly represented within the narcissist's psychological framework. It's far more layered than most people assume. The narcissist, as we know, relies on what is called narcissistic supply, external validation that briefly fills the emptiness where genuine self-worth should exist. But not all supply holds the same value. There is a hierarchy, a spectrum of quality that the narcissist instinctively senses even if they cannot consciously explain it. Most people they encounter provide what we could call superficial supply, admiration for their looks, their achievements, their image. It's transactional, interchangeable, and ultimately hollow. The narcissist consumes it rapidly and constantly needs more because it doesn't truly nourish anything real. It's like junk food for a starving inner world. And then there is the super empath. What they provide is fundamentally different. The super empath doesn't simply mirror the narcissist's grandiose self-image back to them. They actually perceive the person beneath the facade. They sense the wound, the fear, the fragmented identity that the narcissist has spent a lifetime protecting themselves from. And this is what makes the experience both intoxicating and dangerous for the narcissist. The super empathies all of this and still chooses to remain, still extends compassion, still believes in their potential for growth. This creates a form of supply the narcissist has likely never encountered before. Who is a super empath? Validation that feels authentic because it comes from someone with true depth, genuine awareness, and the emotional capacity to hold complexity. The super empath can simultaneously recognize the narcissist's constructed false self and their hidden true self, responding to both with a kind of profound acceptance. And for the narcissist, this feels like finding water after wandering through a desert their entire life. It's not just that the super empath boosts their ego, it's that the super empath makes them feel real, visible, understood, acknowledged, and for someone whose entire psychological structure is built around avoiding true exposure, this is both terrifying and magnetic. The super empath also brings something else into the dynamic, intellectual and emotional substance that genuinely challenges the narcissist. Unlike typical sources of supply who are easier to control and manipulate, the super empath interacts on a level that stimulates and engages them. There are meaningful discussions, flashes of authentic connection, exchanges that feel substantial rather than staged. The narcissist becomes hooked on this quality of interaction in a way that differs from their usual craving for validation. It's no longer just about protecting their grandiose image. It's about tasting something that resembles a real relationship, even if they cannot fully reciprocate it. But this is where the trap lies. The narcissist cannot properly process this type of supply in a healthy way. They cannot integrate it, grow from it, or allow it to reshape them. Instead, they extract from it. They draw continuously from the super empath's depth, using it to feel temporarily complete. Yet they cannot return the same depth because they lack access to their own. They are pulling from a source they cannot refill. And this is where betrayal becomes unavoidable. Their pathology ultimately drives them to devalue and damage the very thing they rely on most. Perhaps the closeness becomes too threatening. Perhaps the super empath begins asking for mutuality. Perhaps the shame of being fully seen becomes intolerable. Whatever ignites it, the narcissist sabotages the relationship, often with striking cruelty, and then they lose it, and they lose that rare caliber of supply. And what they realize afterwards is that it cannot be recreated. The narcissist may secure new admirers, manipulate new partners, dominate new relationships, but they will never again encounter that unique blend of depth, awareness, patience, and sincere care. They will never again be seen so thoroughly and still accepted. They will never again access that same level of connection, that degree of emotional and intellectual intensity. They have destroyed something singular, and at some level they recognize it. Every future relationship becomes a pale imitation of what they once had and discarded. Every new source of validation feels empty by comparison. They are attempting to fill a void that only one specific kind of nourishment could satisfy, and they have permanently severed themselves from it. You cannot replace someone who saw you fully and loved you regardless, especially after you confirmed their reasons to walk away. And yet the loss of supply, painful as it may be, points to something even more psychologically devastating for the narcissist. Because what the super empath truly symbolized was something the narcissist and has structured their entire life around avoiding the experience of being truly known. Let me clarify what that means. The narcissist's entire psychological framework functions as an elaborate defense mechanism designed to shield a core wound, a deep sense of defectiveness, shame, or unworthiness formed early in development. Everything about the narcissistic persona, the grandiosity, the superiority, the need for dominance, the absence of empathy, these are not simple personality characteristics. They are protective layers. They form a fortress meant to ensure that no one ever comes close enough to uncover what the narcissist believes is their fundamentally unlovable, authentic self. And this system works fairly well with most people. The narcissist can maintain the facade, keeping others at the exact distance required to receive validation without true penetration, admiration without true penetration, admiration without genuine intimacy. Most individuals never see beyond the mask because the narcissist does not allow that closeness, or because those individuals lack the perceptiveness to detect the construction. But the super empath is different. The super empath possesses an almost uncanny sensitivity to what exists beneath appearances. They sense the injury beneath the grandiosity. They feel the fear beneath the anger. They recognize the vulnerability beneath the apparent confidence. And crucially, they can hold the betrayal that changes everything, all of this awareness, at once without being seduced by the false self or shattered by the narcissist's defenses. And this means that perhaps for the first time in the narcissist's life, they are involved with someone who truly knows them. Not the performed version, not the curated persona, not the calculated presentation, but the actual fractured, frightened, shame-bound individual underneath. And here lies the paradox the narcissist cannot reconcile. One part of them deeply longs for this. One part is starving to be fully seen and accepted anyway. This longing is often what draws them toward the super empath to begin with. But another part, the part built around psychological survival, experiences this degree of exposure as unbearable. So throughout the relationship, the narcissist lives inside a painful double bind. The super empath's ability to perceive their true self becomes both the thing they desire most and the thing they dread most. It is simultaneous. The deepest intimacy they have known and the greatest threat they have faced. And when the relationship ends, when the narcissist ultimately betrays this person and pushes them away, something irreversible occurs within their defensive structure. Now they must live with the reality that someone saw through everything, down to the core, and still chose to leave. This is profoundly different from other breakups. When an ordinary source of supply walks away, the narcissist can construct a comforting narrative. They couldn't handle me. They didn't understand me. They weren't on my level. They rejected the performance, but they never truly knew the real me. This story allows their defenses to remain intact, but with the super empath, that explanation collapses. The narcissist cannot deny that they were deeply known. They cannot claim the empath misunderstood them. They cannot argue that the empath, only the emotional awakening of a super empath, saw the surface. The super empath saw the entirety, the wound, the defenses, the recurring patterns, the pathology, and still chose to leave. Not out of confusion, but out of clarity. Not because they couldn't handle complexity, but because they valued themselves. This destabilizes the narcissist's core defenses. If someone can see you that thoroughly and still walk away, what does that imply about what they saw? If the one person who understood you most completely ultimately decided you were not worth staying for, how do you protect yourself from the possibility that the flawed, shame-filled self you've hidden might actually be who you are? And the narcissist cannot recover from this because it is not merely a loss. It is confirmation of their deepest fear. It feels like proof that being truly known results in abandonment. It validates the very terror they have structured their life to avoid. And even worse, they can. And not erase the fact that they were seen. They cannot rebuild a wall that has already been permanently breached. Every future relationship becomes shadowed by this knowledge. The narcissist now understands what it feels like to be fully exposed, which means they understand exactly what they are concealing from everyone else. They recognize the difference between someone deceived by the mask and someone who perceives beyond it. And they know that the one person who perceived everything chose to leave. And this creates a kind of psychological scar tissue that never completely fades. The narcissist may acquire new supply, establish new connections, even persuade themselves they have moved forward. Yet beneath the surface remains an awareness, often unconscious, that they were once entirely known and ultimately rejected, that someone had complete access to who they truly are. Why narcissists cannot replace a super empath are and decided it was insufficient, and perhaps most painfully of all, the narcissist knows, even if they can never consciously admit it, and that the super empath's departure was not malicious or vindictive. It was simply the inevitable outcome of the narcissist's own behavior. The empath did not walk away out of confusion or incapacity. They left because they saw clearly and chose themselves. The narcissist cannot reconstruct what the super empath's awareness dismantled. The illusion that staying hidden guarantees safety. And let's look at what unfolds in the narcissist's everyday life after the super empath is gone. Beyond the psychological blow of being fully seen and then abandoned, something more immediate and visceral takes place. The narcissist is forced to confront the very thing they have spent their entire life avoiding: themselves. The super empath was not only offering admiration or even profound connection, they were serving as an emotional stabilizer for the narcissist's internal turmoil. And it's important to clarify this distinction because it is not identical to codependency or simple enabling, even if it may resemble it on the surface. And the narcissist's inner world is fundamentally dysregulated. Without a stable identity, without genuine self-esteem, without the ability to self-soothe or emotionally integrate, they live in a state of chronic instability. They swing constantly between inflated superiority and inner collapse, between explosive anger and hollow emptiness, the long-term regret narcissists experience between the dread of being insignificant and the exhausting act of appearing exceptional. Most people in their life cannot withstand this level of inner disorder. They are either completely captivated by the grandiose facade or quickly overwhelmed and withdraw. But the super empath possesses a rare and often self-sacrificing capacity to remain steady in the face of these contradictions. They stay composed during the narcissist's rage, provide grounding during emotional spirals, and offer a stabilizing presence. The narcissist cannot generate internally, and over time the narcissist cannot generate internally, and over time the narcissist becomes deeply reliant on this regulatory role. The super empath turns into the container for emotions the narcissist cannot process, the anchor when their identity begins to fragment, the mirror that reflects coherence when their sense of self threatens to dissolve. Because the super empathy performs this function so consistently and skillfully, the narcissist may not even consciously recognize the dependence. They simply know that in this person's presence they feel more stable, more solid, more whole than anywhere else. And then the empath leaves, and abruptly, that stabilizing force is gone. The narcissist is left alone with the raw intensity of their internal chaos, all the emotions they never burn. To manage all the fragmentation they never integrated, all the emptiness they never addressed from within, it remains. But now there is no one to how super empaths become emotionally stronger, help contain it. No one to absorb their anger without retaliation. No one to witness their vulnerability without exploiting it. No one to reflect back a stable identity when they feel themselves unraveling. And this is not simply missing someone. It is not ordinary grief. It is the experience of losing a vital psychological function. Like losing a limb you never realized you relied upon until it was gone. And what makes it even more devastating is that the narcissist cannot clearly name what they have lost. They lack the emotional insight to say, I relied on this person to regulate my nervous system, to contain my projections, to stabilize my identity. Instead, they feel an aching emptiness, a persistent void that nothing seems to satisfy, and so they attempt to replace it. They pursue new admirers, new relationships, new streams of validation. But the difficulty is this: no one else carries the super empath's distinctive blend of depth, endurance, perception, and tolerance. No one else can fulfill that stabilizing role at the same level. The new supply may be appealing, accomplished, even generous, but they lack the emotional complexity to hold the narcissist's contradictions They are either too superficial to perceive what the narcissist truly requires, or too emotionally healthy to provide it. The final lessons about self-respect and emotional power establish boundaries where the super empathist patience. They withdraw where the super empath would have endured. They expect mutual effort where the super empath once gave freely, and so the emptiness persists. The narcissist keeps searching for what was lost, but they are seeking something that cannot be duplicated. They are trying to find someone who can perform the impossible task of making them feel internally whole, the way the super empath once did. But that individual does not exist. Or if they do, they are another super empath who has already learned not to abandon themselves for someone incapable of reciprocity. Gradually, the narcissist begins to sense, even if only subconsciously, that they are alone with themselves in a way they have never been before.